Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Well, you have Erin and me today. Does it feel like Betsy and Alex have been gone forever?
I know. I think when they're traveling right now, they're in London and the UK in general. And I know when you are traveling, it doesn't feel like you're gone forever. But for everybody else at home,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's been
hmm
interesting, but they're having a great
hmm
time. The workshop with Sarah Campbell was, I guess, phenomenal. And now they're in London shopping for fabric. And then there was a picture posted yesterday, and everybody had a sack.
I noticed that. It was quite the crowd, like, coming out of the fabric
Yeah,
store and getting
yeah,
everybody lined up. And yeah, I was pretty impressed with those bags. So good job, guys.
yeah. Joel and son. So they were there. And apparently, they spent a couple of hours, like 2 hours, in the Liberty fabric section alone in Liberty. So there were other sacks the day before, the afternoon of, or whatever it was. Anyway, they're due home here in a couple of days, so
Oh, well, I
it'll
can't
feel
wait.
more normal again.
Can't wait to hear about it.
Yep. Do you do much reading? Probably not.
I'm more of an audiobook person. So,
Yeah. Well, you have an active son who's involved in a lot of things, and I know how that is. I remember when Alex was Oliver's age, and it was swim at 6:30 in the morning and something else after
mhm.
school and whatever. Anyway, I don't do as much reading as I used to. I used to belong to a book club. Well, I actually do belong to a book club, which is kind of interesting. Um, I've gotten hooked up with an art store in Minneapolis, or St. Paul actually, called Wet Paint. And they have a monthly book club. And the
Hmm.
books are things I would never look at. These are art-based books,
Oh, nice. Hmm.
like that little tiny book by, here's the name thing again,
You mentioned it
Yoko
on.
Ono.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was
Yoko
not
Ono.
okay.
It's about this big, and it's her kind of quasi poetry, and it's her drawings are all this pointillist style. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. I thought it was horrible, but whatever. But it was interesting discussion in the book club, is the point. And it meets on a Friday virtually from 5 to 6, and anybody's welcome, and it's free. So I've read books that I wouldn't normally read. Anyway, Nora Rader, a friend and customer, recommended this book, The Crown, The
The
Gown.
count.
I'm back in movies, and it really is good, and I recommend it. It's a story of the embroiderers of Queen Elizabeth's wedding gown. It's a novel, but it's based on a true time frame and after the war and during the war, kind of about these embroiderers who work like beavers to get the embroidery done,
Hmm.
for the dress. And then the second half of the book is about the um, the people who didn't know about. Let's see, 1947 was the first part of the book, and then 1970, I think, or 2016, where the grandchildren, the granddaughter of one of the seamstresses is featured, and trying to
Oh.
find out more about how she didn't know anything about her grandmother. Her grandmother never talked about it. And anyway, it's a good
Hmm.
book. So I always like to recommend reading material. So
Hmm.
The Gown by Jennifer Robeson.
That's interesting that there's a little comment from Kate Quinn, who's one of my favorite authors.
Yeah,
So those are Alice Network. Those are really great to listen to. So
yeah,
might have to see if that's an audio version.
yeah, I bet it is. So anyway, check it out. All right. Well, the weather is definitely turning for us,
Yes.
and it's going to be really beautiful today as it was yesterday. And so we're
hmm
beginning to think about summer. I'm
hmm
one of these sowers that doesn't plan very well until
hmm
it's hot and I need something today.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. You want that short sleeve shirt today. Hmm
Exactly.
hmm
So we're trying to get a jump on it here and get you thinking about the heat of summer, or maybe you live in a climate like that all year round. So we're going to talk about summer shirts today. And I
hmm
think we do a good job of representing that little niche of clothing. But I was looking through, or I get a daily email from Eileen Fisher,
Right.
herself, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, directly to you.
Yeah, directly to me. Yeah, personalized. But anyway, I like Eileen Fisher. I look at it. It seems kind of the same a lot. Do you notice that?
But it's wearable, which I think
Very
is
wearable.
nice.
Exactly.
Mhm.
In fact, we have one pant. Let's see, what has that evolved into? So originally our Ikena pants
Okay.
pattern
Mhm.
was pretty much a copy of my favorite Eileen Fisher pants. Well, those have turned into the salt wells, right?
The salt well was definitely a combination of that was took on a life of its own. But maybe you're thinking of the Chesney.
Yes.
The Chesney, we did use the draft of the Ikena.
Yeah.
And added the West End pockets, and that's how that one came about.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway, so this popped up a couple days ago, and a couple things about it that are interesting. First of all, could it be more simple?
Which is great. When it's warm and you don't want to think about what you're wearing that day. I think for me, I mean, a tank top and wide leg pants all
Right.
day.
So this would be our mix-it tank,
Right. Mm-hmm.
probably out of the envelope,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
and maybe the West End pants or the Chesneys or
I think to me West
any.
End, but I think any. I mean,
could be Hudson's, could be
Mhm.
anything. But the color combination is really interesting too. White with neutral, which is, I'm seeing this new variations of a neutral pant everywhere.
Right.
And of course, a great white shirt or tank or top is fantastic. We don't have a white on the wall today.
Well, we don't. So, which would be my go-to. I mean, just when you're trying to get dressed,
Yeah.
a white top,
Yeah.
I think is perfect.
I have a lot of white tops for summer,
Mhm.
cottons and linen, and you're right. There's something very nice about not having to think real hard about what you're going to put on,
Right,
and what's going to go with what. And this color combination really works. But we're going to talk about color.
Right.
Because
Well, which
we're all about color.
Right.
Yeah.
It's attractive. It's kind of that instant love.
Yes.
When you come across a great print. So.
And there's the white, off-white, cream, and all that. But they say not everybody can wear white, but I'm not sure about that. I think everybody can wear white.
I mean, to me, it's good to have a couple different versions of white. You might want a really bright white.
Yeah.
But I think if you have a soft vanilla white, I think that can fit into your wardrobe too.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be afraid of different shades of white.
I tend not to wash things, although in the summer I wash more than I do in the winter. But my white shirts go to the dry cleaners, mostly because I'm lazy and I don't want to press them. But they get yellow over time.
Because of the dry cleaning?
Because of the dry cleaning. And so I end up washing it to get the dry cleaning solutions out of it and get it back to white again. And then I'll wash it a couple of times. And then I'm back to the dry cleaner, and I'm kind of all over the board. But
see, I think it takes a lot of work to go to the dry cleaner. I don't know what it is about that.
Really?
It's an extra stop.
Oh, that's interesting. Well,
can't do that at 11 o'clock at night,
You want to show your face on camera?
Yeah, I'll do
We have a
that.
visitor.
You're going to get to see the man today. This is my husband, Craig, and Alex's dad.
I get to be on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah, he calls us the Ed Sullivan Show. Yeah, every time I come home on Tuesdays, he says, "So how was the Ed Sullivan Show today?" So here he is. This is Craig Woodbury.
Hello. I'll do my Ed Sullivan imitation.
Yeah, I'm not sure how well
Now,
they can
how many,
hear you.
How many
but-
people know that? Well, I know right here on our show. Popo Gijo. That's going to time date everybody here. So
All
have
right.
a great time.
Thank you.
You're in good hands. Thanks for the guest appearance.
Well, hopefully you guys will be able to hear that through our mics, because it was definitely not something to miss.
Were you old enough to watch the Ed Sullivan Show? No. Do you even know that there was an Ed Sullivan?
I do know that it existed. Yes. Yes.
He brought us the Beatles.
Well, that
That's
tells
right.
you the time period right there.
Yeah, I
was
must have
not
been in
alive.
high school
Was not
because
alive.
I remember when the Beatles were on. There was another group on Ed Sullivan that wasn't supposed to. Oh, it was Elvis, right? He was not supposed to shake or do his thing,
He
and
can't do
he
that.
promised he wouldn't and all that, and of course he did it, and it was a huge hit. What'd you say?
That was Jim Morrison and the Doors.
Oh, excuse me, that was Jim Morrison and the Doors.
I'm
Craig
sure they had
corrected me.
trouble with Elvis too.
Yeah,
but
probably. Anyway, I grew up in the prude days, I guess. Things have changed for sure. Well, anyway, we're going to show you several patterns that we think would make great summer tops. And we're also going to talk about vents a little bit, because that is one of the common things that shows up in a lot of our tops is a vent. And we have like 5 different ways of doing vents, but we're going to talk about, one today. It's funny about vents. Why are there vents?
I think it gives you a little more ease.
Yeah, comfort, of ease, because really things shouldn't be so tight around you that it
True.
opens.
True.
And vents can be little, and they can be real tall, and they don't have to be there at all.
I think it's a fun design detail too. I like a deep vent,
Yeah,
like what we have on like the cottage or the willow that we're going to show you today. That has a really deep vent on one side, which is really fun.
right.
So I think it just adds another design element to a pattern.
And one of the things you have to remember, if you're adding a vent to anything, do you want to just continue to cut the side seams straight down, or do you want to cut and have an extra seam allowance, I'll call it, on the vent portion of the garment? You have to think about how you're going to finish the vent, whether you're going to turn it twice or whether you have not enough to turn, but it's something to consider when you're cutting out. A lot of our patterns have vents, but no extra, what do you call that? Angular extension.
I think we've
guess.
called it a vent extension.
Yeah,
on
vent extension.
On a few patterns,
Yeah.
right?
So you have to think about that. I think a vent extension is nice. It finishes it a little bit better. If you've got a big vent, I think it's really important, because that will swing open, blow open when you sit, and it's nice to see the inside of a vent looking really finished. So we're going to talk about one that does have a vent extension, but it wouldn't have to have if you didn't have it. So where do we want to start?
Should we start showing garments?
Let's show garments. Okay.
Garments. Let's do it.
All right. I guess we could start with what we have on.
All right.
So I have on the splice. And I called it the splice because of these insertions on the side that I just called splices. I have them on with a print fabric, very drapey fabric, that's West End pants. And a couple years ago, I was wearing a lot of print pants. They kind of come and go, but I see them still.
I think it's really, to me, says summer when you have prints in general. But
Exactly.
I think a printed pant, whether it's a crop pant or whether it's full length, I think you're seeing a lot of that still.
I'm looking in the mirror and this looks crooked. I don't know why.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, and you have on?
I have on a Eureka. So a few years ago, for So Confident, we did a pieced Eureka project where we put together different silks and viscose and polys, and we put them all together to create a pieced, lengthened Eureka with a nice vent. It's longer in the back than in the front. And it just combines a lot of different fabrics that maybe you wouldn't have combined or think of combining. But I think when you have fun with that sort of thing, I think you can put more together than you would initially think.
Yeah, and a animal type print is one of those real mixable fabrics with anything,
I think
with
so.
floral stripes, whatever. So if you have some of that in your stash, we have a couple, I think, online. That to me is I remember where we took those pictures. It's one of my favorite places.
Is that when we're at the cemetery?
Yeah, we have this unique cemetery that's very old in Topeka, and it has the in the side of a hill, it has these,
Are they is it a mausoleum? No.
there's a word for them. Mausoleum, I don't
I
think
think
that's
that's-
quite
no, I
right,
don't
but
think
it's
so
it's
either.
a structure,
Mhm.
and they all have these really incredible architectural elements outside of the hill. I don't know. I'm getting off on track, but it's one of those places I like to go drive around. I don't know why.
I mean, it's historic. It's really unique.
Yeah, it's
place.
very unique.
And cemeteries can be pretty
And
beautiful.
you can tell that no one has been in any of them for 100 years. They're a little bit decrepit. Maybe that's why I like them. Kind of creepy. Okay, so let's show, what kind of event does the Eureka have?
Well, traditionally, the Eureka doesn't have a vent. Like the original version doesn't have a vent. It's a cropped, a shorter top. But with this project, see how I can show it to you. Right now it's upside down. This one we did here. We're going to change it a little bit. We are going to take the hanger off and turn it inside out.
Okay.
But this project we used French seams, and then we did turn the vent under so you don't have any raw edges.
That's one of the techniques. I'm putting together sort of how-tos of all of these different vent options, and I'm going to do a little video on them, so kind of watch for that.
I think that would be great.
Turning a French seam into a vent is probably the trickiest one. And actually, I got the technique out of Threads magazine. I wish I could tell you offhand the author of the article. The disappointment to me of the article was that the sample that was illustrated in the magazine was a dark print. It was I thought it was difficult to read the illustrations. But the text, of course, was fine, and it all was fine, really. But you have to study it a little bit. But I'll do it on something plainer, and I think it'll show up a little bit better. But that's probably the most beautiful vent, is when you have a French seam. And a French seam on silks and rayons like this is perfect.
Right, then you're not seeing any raw edges.
No raw edges whatsoever anywhere. And just as a side note, Kathy Davis was the one who picked out all these combos.
Right, yes. We did a live stream quite a while ago on the original design, and then this was the project that came from it.
Right.
So, and we had kits, with these different color combinations. But yeah, Kathy can put things together like no one else.
Exactly. She can see this was a panel kind of thing.
That was really interesting. It was like a scarf panel, multiple scarf panels.
Exactly.
None of them in here, I guess.
Yeah. This is an animal type print, only not the traditional black or brown and cream. And different weights. I mean, this is semi-sheer, this one right here. Kind of a cotton voile. And we have some rayon. I'm sure this is polyester.
It was.
Yeah.
Did you have to do anything to it because they were different weights?
Not in this particular case, but she has made other things in patchworks where some of the pieces need to be underlined or interfaced so that they do have a more similar flavor. So she's done that, but I don't think that's been done on any of these. No.
I feel like
or
they're
yours
all
either.
drapey enough. Like it all seemed to flow.
Like this semi-sheer one. See, it even works, even though in your mind you might say, maybe I'll put a piece of batiste under this, or lawn, or very lightweight interfacing. But she didn't do that. Did she make this? I think she did.
I think so. And maybe you made this one.
I think I made one and she made one. Yeah. Anyway, so get your scraps out, buy a yard of something interesting that kind of is your starter piece, and then work from there.
Or sometimes there'll be fabrics that you could pick out different sections of it, whether it's a border print, or it's a great way to use border prints, because then it would.
Yeah. And it's a great way to use something you don't love.
Well, true.
Maybe there's one flower or one selvage or one little print or something of something that
Mhm.
it's just not you anymore, but a square this big of something cut out of a random part of the fabric can really work. By the way, I was in the vault the other day and I saw a box of pieces and parts of these.
We do still have. I know we have pieces of this still.
Yeah, we could probably put a kit together
Mhm.
and not even know what we have.
Mhm.
But anyway, okay, so that's the Eureka. The Eureka is probably one of our simplest garments and patterns. And we are actually doing a whole series of Eureka related videos that will be
Mhm.
out soon on YouTube. I think they'll be free. Of course, the idea is to lead you to take the class, maybe this class or whatever. But okay, now this is one we don't show very often or ever.
Yeah, this is the mimosa top. It's a printed pattern. It comes with a pair of pants as well. But this is a wrap blouse that buttons not only on the outside, but on the inside too, to be nice and secure. And it has this angled band in the front.
There's a couple of ways to button this, as I recall.
That's true.
This is buttoned pretty traditionally, but I think there's another option that makes it a little more asymmetric. This may not have that option with it.
It does have two buttons on, so you can
yeah, there
drop
it is.
this down. Is that?
That's it.
Down? And maybe it's missing
Here.
that other button. There it is. Should have refreshed ourselves on how to.
Yeah.
There we go.
I think maybe it's this one. It's been so long since I've made this, but it does give you this extension down here. Now, when it's on, it crosses over pretty high and it stays there because both fronts go clear to the sides. Now, Brianna made one as a maternity top.
She did.
And maybe Bessie, when she gets back, can get that picture out because that's.
You can post it.
Not only was it a maternity top, but it was just longer. And I thought that was a great look.
I mean, you can make it in a tunic, or it was like a tunic length,
It was like
if
a
I
tunic
remember
length.
correctly, but you could also make it into a dress, which I think would be really fun.
Did you mention that the binding is on the outside?
I did not.
Okay.
No.
So when you're doing a binding anywhere, if it's a neck or the arm side, you can put the binding either on the inside or the outside. So we have a tutorial called.
We have a couple different binding tutorials, and we can post links once we figure out which one is which.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have some great, different techniques for doing bindings on armholes or on necklines, because all of our garments have some sort of interesting binding on it as well.
Yeah, binding is something I think that every sewer needs to perfect. And my secret, if there is one, is to work slowly, precisely, and do basting, hand basting first, before you try to top stitch it and control it. Get it all worked out first, even, no twerking, before you ever try to machine stitch it.
Right. Otherwise, you'll get puckers.
Yeah,
typically.
I call it twerking, but puckers, kind of pulled areas, thick and thin.
Right.
Yeah. So there are, but you're right. It does show up on a lot of our garments. So, and anybody's really. So just beware that that's something you need to work hard on. It's probably the most difficult part of making this. And I wouldn't call it difficult. It just slows you down a little bit because you want to be really precise.
That's a great summer top. I mean, you could do that with instead of the mix it, you could do the mimosa.
Do it in white
and a
linen,
white
or white cotton or white tone on tone or.
That'd be that's a great idea. Well, speaking of white, a couple white and two different colors here, but we have our new blouse, the Sicily. And this has, it's very simple. It has that binding at the neckline, kind of a higher neck, a longer, about 10-inch sleeve, has a great vent, a little bit longer in the back than in the front, has a keyhole finish at the back, at the center back. Now this would be great if you don't want to have a tank. This would be a great
Right.
option for
This
your
would
simple
probably
top.
be my option. I'm not
Mhm.
super thrilled with the way my arms look, although it is cooler, no question. But I would put a
Mhm.
sleeve in this, either shorter. I think, is this the length of the sleeve in the pattern?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, that would be the perfect sleeve length for me, probably.
And I think it's kind of, I mean, you could widen it a little bit if you wanted to, like if you wanted it to just have more flow, you know,
Right.
like if you're warm, I think it's still
Well, we
would be nice
specifically
and cool.
designed this to go under the Toulouse jacket.
Mhm.
And this was one of the kits that went under it. We have another fabric to show you that we tried to get for kits but couldn't get it at the time, and we got it a little bit later. But I love this plissé seersucker
Mhm.
texture to it. It does have bust darts. It's one of the few patterns. It's very similar to our mix-it top bust darts, which people like to have and not have to worry about doing their own thing. So
Narrow hems, did we talk about that?
yeah, the little small hems. A lot of
Mhm.
our tops have narrow hems that are turned twice.
So what technique do you like to use for your narrow
Well,
hems?
my favorite technique is to run a line of stay stitching
Mhm.
along the um, finished length of the hem. So if the hem is going to be 3/8 of an inch finished, I'll run the stay stitching line 3/8 of an inch from the edge. Then that gives me a line to press, gives me a guideline to press that 3/8 of an inch to the wrong side. So then when I go to the sewing machine, I can turn this hem one more time without pressing it. I can just use my needle down position, hold it, fold it, give it a little tension, and it'll just fold right in there. It's a much easier than to try to press it twice. But that's how I do a narrow hem. Now, the stay stitching does a couple of things. It's a guide, but it's also a stabilizer. But I found on a fabric like this, which has this plissé, that it still wanted to stretch. But I was able to steam that right back.
Okay, that's good.
So
I know I remember it's been years, but the first time I did that, I was nervous that it was going to stretch out, and I was like, no, I'm just going to press it. It'll be fine. And then, you know, when I convinced myself, no, this is how you're supposed to do it. I'm going to try it. And it was so easy. It was so easy. I felt a little ridiculous that I thought that was going to be difficult.
yeah,
But it didn't stretch out. It was
yeah.
quick. I was
Yeah,
impressed
I
by
don't
the
use a
technique.
template. I don't try to eyeball it. I don't tape it.
Right. Just
Just
work.
stitch it. And this is another Sicily in a fabric like this,
Cotton gauze.
cotton gauze. And Erin made this. She did a beautiful job on this. The difference in the neck binding is pretty subtle, but it is different. It's the same process as the white one, but Erin has top stitched it. And this one, because of the texture, I chose to hand slip stitch it to finish it. So it's really just two different ways. Both work. I could have top stitched it on this. I didn't even try it. Might have looked better, but this kept a little bit of the puckering. I didn't want to flatten that too much. I don't know. You know, you talk yourself into all kinds of things when you're sewing. But otherwise, yeah, this vents and button is a nice detail. But this fabric is fantastic.
It's really soft. We have it in, I think, 7 colors.
7 colors, all on sale this week.
Right. I think it's just, it drapes beautifully, very soft, easy to wear.
Comfortable, cool. Yeah. Okay, so that's the Sicily. That's brand new. You know, this is one of my favorites, actually. Just enough detail to give it some interest. It's sleeveless, but it does come off of the shoulder a touch, little
Mhm.
bit extended.
And this is the gardenia.
Gardenia. This is in a linen, printed linen. And the front is a little bit fuller. So it has this pleat down the front that is attached for 2 or 3 inches right here by machine. And then it has ties, one that comes out of the side seam and one that comes out of this pleat. And that's what forms its little hitch tied
Mhm.
part. This has binding at the neck and the arm's eye, both turned to the inside.
Narrow
This
hem.
doesn't have, does this have vents? No. This is the only one that doesn't
Mhm.
have vents.
It has that narrow hem.
Yeah.
Using the stay stitching.
This is also a dress
Mhm.
in the pattern.
And the dress option actually has sleeves or like sleeve bands like the Eureka.
Exactly. But I still
Mhm.
like it like this.
I do too. I think this is. Would
Yeah.
you wear this in the summer as opposed to?
Yeah, I might wear
mix it?
that. I can't tell you why I would
Mhm.
wear this and not
Mhm.
something else, but just this extended shoulder seam gives it a little more something over the shoulder. Doesn't cover up my arms, but I just like the way it is. I also think this is a great vest. So I could wear a little t-shirt underneath it
Oh, that's true. Can
if
you
I
get a
wanted a little
t-shirt
sleeve.
under that?
I think so.
Mhm.
Certain ones, not, I mean, this arm's eye is built to not have any show through or anything. It's a
Right,
good
high
arm's
enough.
eye,
I think you
but
just would practice.
I could open it up if I wanted to put a different kind of sleeve underneath it.
Mhm.
I could transpose a completely different sleeve on this. Now we showed that a couple weeks ago, or was it last week,
Mhm.
where maybe I like the sleeve of the Sicily. I could transpose that arm's eye on here and then put the Sicily sleeve in it.
Right.
That's maybe what I would do.
That's a good idea.
The Mix-It top has a little more of a cap sleeve,
Right. So
not as long as this. So if I wanted to put just a little cap
Mhm.
sleeve on it, I would use the Mix-It top.
right. Well, here's another great top that has a sleeve band, like the Eureka. This is the Hugo top, and I love this detail here. This front
Yeah.
detail with the placket. So it has a buttoned placket. It's a really unique technique here. Interior buttons facing. It's really flattering.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. Now this sleeve I like a lot. The Eureka
Mhm.
and this. It's dropped, it's got the band. It's not a true sleeve. This fabric is the same as this fabric. Am I right about that?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A puckered cotton. We think of things that are, you have to be
Cotton.
careful about things that are puckered. I go into, is that right?
Viscose and silk.
Oh, it's viscose and silk, never mind.
Mhm.
Okay, but you see a lot of twisted, crunched garments in stores,
Mhm.
and they're not in polyester.
Oh, right.
If they're
Mhm.
polyester, those crinkles are going to set, and you can wash it and it'll come out of the washing machine crinkled. But if it's like this, well,
Mhm.
it's not like this. You have to look at it. You can tell that the puckers in this are woven in, and so those puckers will stay.
Okay. Does it shrink up or anything? I don't know.
It may shrink up initially
Mhm.
out of the washing machine, and then you can press it out again.
Which is what we found. Wish I would have grabbed those swatches. That's what we found with this one.
Right.
Is in the wash, it does shrink up, and you can steam it out. Though to me, this is a fabric that you get dry cleaned. Don't you think?
I don't know. That's an interesting thing. Yes, I would definitely dry clean mine,
Mm-hmm.
but these crinkles are woven in.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to stay there. So you could wash it and steam it.
And steam it out
Yeah,
to
I think
relax it
so.
a little bit.
I think so. It might
Mhm,
get
mhm.
more puckered, which I have no objection
Mhm.
to.
It did get quite a bit more puckered, so I think you have to,
Yeah.
you would definitely have to steam
You
it
never
out.
know what the dry cleaners is going to do with this either. Whether they're going to smash it to death.
True.
So I don't know. you may want to have a pretty good size sample to pre-wash. And maybe if you think you're going to dry clean it, take that sample with a batch of other garments to the dry cleaners and ask them to deal with it and see what it looks like.
Or do that dry L where you can control
Yeah,
it yourself.
I know. It's so frustrating. Sometimes everything is just perfect. But you can ruin something whether you wash it or you dry clean it.
Well, true.
So testing is the deal. And figure out what you're, and people ask us what's going to happen. We don't,
unless we try it ourselves,
Yeah, we don't really know
We
either.
don't know, and we can't test every single, fabric that comes in here.
Like Kathy had on that top that had shrunk in the dry cleaners.
Oh,
That was
right.
shocking to me.
Right.
Well, to
That she
her
was
too.
talking about last week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you never know. Okay, I think we have one more, maybe.
We do. This is one that I think we forget about, but I just think it's a great design. This
Yeah.
is the Willow. It has long sleeve and short sleeve in the pattern, but it's a collared shirt with this button draped design in the front. And it's asymmetric, so it's longer on one side, has this angled hem down here, and then a really deep side vent, which I think is just really fun. So it has that structure of a button-down shirt, but it's a little more playful.
Yeah. I like a neckline that's not close fitting, but has a little something up here. Like when I put my splice on today, I thought it looked a little barren in the neck. We always have to work
Let's adjust.
backwards. So for me, this is not my favorite part of my body.
So you want
Erin said it was okay, but okay. But this, see, to me is more interesting. I'm not trying to downplay this splice because a lot of people love it and wear it. But for me, I probably should put a choker or not in the summer. I wouldn't wear a scarf in the summer, but something to fill this in just a little bit.
And you could, if you love the splice, you could make it a little, you wouldn't have to make it a boat neck. You
That's
could make
true.
it more of a crew neck because it is wider.
Yeah, and
than
bind it instead of facing.
True.
This is a Liberty fabric. We don't have it any longer, I don't believe,
I
but
don't think so.
that Tana lawn fabric that's so incredible.
Now I just finished a pattern that we're working on in a Liberty. And you just, when you're sewing on a Liberty, there's nothing better. And you get finished and you're just so satisfied because it's so easy to work with. It's a fun
It
fabric
doesn't
to
wrinkle all that much.
sew.
It wrinkles, but because it's cotton, but just something about, like we didn't press this one or steam it or anything before we brought it out. But yeah, you can get nice crisp corners and edges, real precise hems. I mean, you just can't go wrong with it. Yes, we know it's a little more money, but you know what? I think it's worth it.
I think so. I
It
mean,
feels like silk. And in fact, it was first produced as artificial silk
okay.
back in the, I don't know when that was. Well, they're celebrating their 150-year anniversary this year. So in 1875 or whatever, this fabric was being produced and they were calling it artificial silk.
So not only is it easy to work with, and you're right, like after you've made it and you're wearing it, it's just easy wear. If you don't have to, steam it or press it, it washes well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And it's a little more money, but not like tons more money. So anyway, it's one of my favorite fabrics. We only buy from their collections. We don't buy their classics that they produce every year all the time. We only buy the more interesting collections, and when they're gone, they're gone. They leave pretty quick. Like we can rarely order more.
right. And we just ordered some of the 150th collection.
Oh, we
for
did?
their anniversary. Well, we
Okay.
have some of them here.
Okay.
So it's just, there's always something new and something else we want.
Yeah, there's always something we want. All right. Should we look at questions now before we do fabrics, or?
Sure. Did you want to show the illustration of that Berwick vent?
Yeah, let's do that.
see if
Let's
we
do
can
that now.
test this out.
So this is a vent that I don't apologize for not giving you credit. I just was looking at garments, and this one, of course, has the extension. So on the front piece, and it doesn't have to be the Berwick Street tunic, obviously, but on the front piece, you're going to finish with your serger that vent angle. Now, if you don't have the extension, just finish it above and below the dot on the edge of the seam. So you want to be about 3 inches above and, I don't know, an inch or two below. Then you sew the seam right sides together, sew the seam from under the arm to the dot at the opening of the vent. Now you're going to finish that seam, and you can see that you can come down here, and when you meet the already serged portion, you're going to cover a little bit of that, maybe about 1/2 inch, 5/8 an inch, or whatever, and then keep on going to the top of the other vent extension, so that when you press the seam to the back, everything, both sides of the top of the vent are finished. So this is a standard seam finish that we use. Stitch the seam, serge it together, the raw edges together, and then press it towards the back. Well, because you have already pre-finished the front for a little bit, then both sides are finished. So that technique is in the Berwick Street tunic pattern. I don't know if it's in, I feel like it's in another one too, but I can't remember what. Maybe not.
And I hope you could hear that, since I don't normally control this. Some of it is a little something that I have to figure out. So do let me know if you couldn't hear that instruction as we were kind of going to 2 different screens. So you can always go over it again. So, but great technique. But like we said, we do have so many different vent techniques that we do in different patterns. So it's always something new to learn.
Okay, let's look at a few questions and see.
All right, so has anyone who is bustier made the willow? What did you think of the willow with for somebody who's a little busty? I don't see any comments about it necessarily, but
Oh, that, what, you think the willow has that vent technique? It may.
it's a slightly different because it does go right to the bottom of that angle on that hem. I think it is similar though. Do you want to show it?
You're right, it has it. That's not done very well. I wasn't going to show it. I don't know what's going on in there.
Oh, the serging is a little nasty, isn't it?
Yeah, but it is the same technique.
Yeah, it does go to the.
But this is really
That
done
is-
poorly.
that's
That's
hard to
because I
show.
made it.
No.
I don't know what's going on.
That was when we were figuring out the technique.
Yeah,
Let's
maybe
say
so.
that. Sometimes that happens.
Maybe so. Okay.
But would you do any bust adjustments or anything like that? Would you have any recommendations?
Well, you
for
could
that?
certainly add bust darts.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, this drape has very little to do. I mean, you should fit this garment with the pleat in place so that you know it fits across here with the pleated. So you want to deal with your normal bust adjustments as if that pleat weren't there.
So is plissé and seersucker the same fabric?
You know, I'd have to look that up in an official fabric or textile dictionary, but I'm under the impression that a seersucker is a plissé. A plissé is a manufacturing technique of plisséing a fabric, pleating, not pleating, but shrinking parts of a fabric, and that's what seersucker is. Should I go look it up now?
If you would like.
Sure.
We want to be accurate on
Yeah.
our live stream. Let's see. How are the seams finished on the patchwork Eureka shirt? Well, let's grab this additional one. I believe they were serged. So yeah, so they were, each of the pieces were put, you know, they would right sides together and then serged and then pressed to one side. So we do have a great tutorial on how we did this, and we can link it once we're kind of wrapped up a little bit here. But it does go through the process, not only the design process, but the how-to, the instructions on how you put the garment together, the piecing, and you know, the pattern changes and everything. So everything you need to know about making the pieced Eureka is in the tutorial, and that is on sale this week.
Okay, in the plissé dictionary, it doesn't say anything about seersucker, of course. So we'll look up seersucker. Seersucker is a little more specific. It is the same thing, permanently woven crinkle stripes in the ground. Both of them are generally in cotton, but can be made in other fabrics or fibers as well. So they're not using them interchangeably. So maybe I need to stop doing that. I need to read both of these. These are my go-to books. This is my favorite, Fairchild's Dictionary of Textiles, and then just to get a quick idea of something, I'll look at this Fashion A to Z. So I might clarify that and say a little bit more about that next week or something, because the definitions of both of them are long. And they have to do with soda ash and
More complex
Yeah.
than maybe you want to. Maybe we
probably
can dive into that on a live stream.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that? Like more in-depth study on certain fabrics that we're featuring.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. If you'd enjoy that.
I love looking up fabrics. I'll say to like Erin or Alex, well, look that up. Well, they go to the computer. And I go to my books.
Well, since it's easy for me, I just, you know, I
Yeah.
go over to your books. But,
Got it.
yeah. Let's see. Somebody asked about the fabrics in our garments. We did talk about kind of the mixture of fabrics that I have on, but I'm not sure if we talked
This
about
is
yours.
this linen rayon
Linen
combo
rayon.
that I use a lot for pants. In fact, I got my white pants out today to wear, but then I found these print ones. I thought, oh, this is pretty good. Shoes were a problem, though.
Oh,
That's always a problem.
that's a big problem. For
I
me
know.
right
Can't
now.
have enough shoes.
Okay. Answered that one. Looks like a few people are getting ready to make a pieced Eureka. Sorry, going through all the comments. In the pieced Eureka top workshop, which series was it a part of?
Ooh.
Well, actually, let's see. I can just look it up here. East Eureka. Like I said, it's on sale this week, and it should say in the description. If not, I don't know. But it was a part of So Confident, but it doesn't actually say.
I always, pre-pandemic or post-pandemic.
True. Life before or after.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to find out. But it was part of So Confident. So if you have been a So Confident member always, you've got it.
Right.
Maybe you can tell us where it is.
There's a question about the cottage.
That's a different deal because the hem on the cottage is very deep and it goes clear up to where the vent opens. So it's covering the seam allowance or vent edge or whatever. Totally different deal.
Yeah, it has
so
that
here's
great...
the hem that comes up to here.
Yeah. Another part of the garment's kind of that you can see that vent there. And we're going to talk about more about the cottage next week.
Yeah.
This does actually happen to be one of the fabrics that we are showcasing today. This is a cotton gauze in a cottage, but more on the cottage next week.
Yeah.
Have some other cotton lawn lovers.
Do we ever make a vent facing? I can't remember if I've ever made one. I'm sure there are circumstances, but if I was displeased with the maybe I decided after the fact that I wanted a vent and I didn't have much to work with. And the fabric kind of needed, I'm thinking of the Ikena, and maybe it's the old Ikena. No, I don't think so. I think it's the new Ikena. That might have a facing. Boy, I don't know. The answer is maybe. I've not done it myself. She's trying to see if we have
the new
anything. I try to think ahead and plan. No, this isn't a facing, is it? It's just a wide hem that turned under. I try to think ahead of time. Well, here's that technique, by the way, that we just talked about, where there's a little bit of serging exposed here. Both of the tops of this are serged, but the vent extension is pretty wide on this. Yeah, if I've done it, it's been too many years for me to remember. So, but it may, probably next week I'll run into some fabric that says, you know what, this needs a facing. You never know. That's interesting, Laura, about the seersucker and plissé. Interesting, because plissé was quite a lengthy description of the soda ash process. I would have thought, and I need to read more of it, I would have thought it would have been done. Yeah, I think there's, Novi, I think you've got it right there. Plissé is from a chemical means, and seersucker is during the weaving process. I think you're right. You know, one of the best classes I ever taught at these trade shows was, we had a notebook and little squares, open squares with some description to the side, and it was separated into wool, linen, silk, cotton, whatever. And I had big pieces of all of these different fabrics that I would lay out on a table, and people would cut their own sample and put in their
Mhm,
notebook.
mhm.
It was a fabric study. I don't think we do enough of that anymore. And we throw out names like, sure, everybody knows what they are, but they don't. So I wish we could replicate that online, but I've never really
Mhm.
figured out how to do that. But it would be fun to have a fabric, as somebody said. I don't know whether it was, uh,
Fabric study.
was it Novi that said that?
Got some good comments about that
Yeah.
are, you know, you're interested in a fabric study, so that's good to know.
Well, maybe as we present fabrics, show those that navy
Oh.
blue. This is not,
Mhm.
Mary, a seersucker, but it's a, now what do we call this?
Let me just say textured cotton, which really isn't
So is this
a
this
technical
plissé?
term.
Probably because it's so precise. They can, but I don't know if this is in the weave. Well, I know that it won't change because there's such even ground around the circles. That's just, do we have that fabric in navy?
It's a royal blue. I can go get it.
Mary's looking for a navy seersucker, which she's having trouble finding. Okay, let's see. Yes, you can add buttons to your order, Ellen. You can either email deb@sewingworkshop.com or call us. Here is the fuchsia crinkle plissé in not deep navy, but in a, boy, that looks so sheer on there when you do that. It's funny because it doesn't seem sheer in the garment or even up there.
Or even up here.
Yeah, I guess it is.
See my hand. But
Anyway, that's probably the closest we have.
I love this color.
I'll have to look, Mary. There's a company in New York called Speckler Vogel, and they have a lot of seersucker. I don't know if you want to check with them or not for Navy. Kathy Davis, 3 years ago for Peace Eureka. Thank you, Kathy.
Oh, so okay. Post-pandemic.
August 21st, so confident. August of 21, so confident. You guys are on it. I use a strip of Glad press and seal cut to match the pattern on horizontal seams like shoulders. This prevents the seam from stretching. Well, that's how I use our knit stay tape, the same thing. Yeah. Yes, we have found an interfacing to replace the Japanese interfacing. I don't believe it's on the website yet. We haven't, I think we have a photo shoot next week. When Betsy gets back, she'll deal with that. But we like what we found. It's not from Japan. Well, I don't know where it's from. I think it's from Italy, but it's not from the US. But it's very lightweight. It's nice. We like it. So yeah, we will never be able to get the other one again. We finally got the final. Instead of maybe, it's no. What's better to use, regular gauze or double gauze? They both great to sew. I'm asking for it. Oh, that's interesting. I have made a couple of things in double gauze, and I think the feel is fantastic. I usually really love the designs on them. I love everything about it except the ability to get a really fine pressed garment. It always looks a little undone, a little unpressed, a little raggedy. So as long as you know that and are fine with that, I mean, you're not going to change it. You can get it off the bolt. How it looks off the bolt is how it's going to look. You're not going to be able to press it in a more refined way. But they have great designs in it, especially the Japanese ones. Well, you're right about, I think younger sewers are lacking. This is the kind of
Mhm.
knowledge that I got in college, actually. I mean, I could
Mhm.
show you the notebook. Did you do
I
that?
have a notebook as well.
Yeah.
I should dig it out.
Of now, some of it was way deep, too deep for what you can actually buy off the bolts today.
Mhm.
And in fact, we have new fibers from when I was in college. Uh, and we worked more with wool and cotton and linen and all that. And now we have all the blends and all of the
Mhm.
synthetics that don't show up in my book, but it's tough. When I was writing my book on sewing knits, we're talking a lot today. I haven't even looked at the fabrics.
Stay tuned.
When I was writing my book on knits, I referenced, and this is true, back when I had a retail fabric store, I had one knit. It was red, and it was an interlock. That was it.
Polyester.
I actually think it was cotton, but
Oh.
I'm surprised. And then by the time I wrote the book, I have 3 or 4 sheets of paper with little tiny pieces on it of every kind of knit that you can get today. It's astonishing.
Mhm.
So anyway, okay, we're running sort of late. You guys are helping me figure this out. That's great.
Okay. A lot of great comments today.
You know, Sandra Betsina does have a book on fabrics, and I own it. It's not the one that I go to the most, but I will say this, it is up to date and it's well done. So I think it's just what you get in the habit of using. Yes, we looked at fabrics with you're right, in microscopes in college.
Mhm.
Yeah, that final exam, I remember. I remember missing Adobe.
Oh.
I still don't exactly know what Adobe is. 50 years later, 55 years later.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, textiles was definitely one of the harder classes.
Yeah, it was. You wouldn't think it would be.
It
but-
was.
Okay, well, we have some great fabrics on
Yes.
sale, and we have other fabrics on sale in the same category. So Erin
Right.
can show you. We've talked about the crinkle.
Yeah,
This is viscose and silk, as she said. This is beautiful,
Yes.
really.
So we have that color, and we'd have the royal that we showed.
Yeah.
So those two are the same. And then also on sale, we put these in there as well because they're a Japanese, another Japanese fabric like these plissés. So we have navy and more of a taupe. What do we call this? Putty.
Putty.
And then we have black. So those are all the same. And then we can skip down to this gauze. Like we said, we have that one. We have these cotton gauzes in about 7 different colors. So all those are on sale as well. And then otherwise are just single fabrics. So I love this one. This print is fantastic. Is that a
You know what?
silk
Let's go
one?
back a bit.
Okay.
This is cotton.
Oh, I was on the wrong tag. Okay.
This one
Yeah.
is silk and viscose.
Okay. Okay. That makes more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
thought that was cotton.
So this print is really fun. I just think
Yeah.
that's a really nice weight. It's not too
A
lightweight.
little bit of matching horizontally, but kind of loosely.
Mhm.
So.
And then the bottom one is a Liberty. That
This
was
is a Liberty. This is from the Bridgerton collection,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And you have a dress you're going to show next week.
Right. I made a splice dress with this print. That's really fun.
Yeah, there's bouquets. I can just see it on that TV show.
I know. It's fantastic. I love that show. Okay. And then this top print is a cotton shirting. So 100% cotton. I like the mix of this one.
What I like about this is I took a watercolor class recently where there were some loose flowers, but then using ink and pen.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what outlining that and little tendrils done in that. I love that look.
It creates a different depth than if they were all saturated.
Right.
Hmm. And then, of course, fun little animal prints
Yep.
mixed in the petals. I like that. And then here's just a more traditional check. This is out of
Who
a
doesn't want a
linen.
summer check?
Yeah, this is
This one is
linden.
peach and white,
Mm-hmm.
1/4 inch check.
That makes-
It has, I think it when washed, it would be softer.
That's what I usually
It
find.
has a little bit of a finish
Mhm.
on it.
Yeah, with linens, a lot of times I like to wash them because I think they
Mhm.
get drapier.
Don't dry them.
Hmm.
Don't dry them. This reminds me of what I have on.
Oh,
The,
that's
the
true.
print for pants, but
That-
we're talking tops. But anyway, it's the same kind of look.
Again, I think this would soften if you wash it. But yeah, it would be great for, I think, the gardenia. That would be.
That would be a great gardenia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Be fun.
And then this is the plissé. Boy, I'm going to have to study up. That we originally wanted to put under the Toulouse jacket.
Yeah.
We couldn't get it on time,
Mm-hmm.
but it came in later. So I love
Mhm.
this color. I love the feel of it.
I love
It's
the
fun.
pop it creates with the Toulouse.
Yeah.
So if you have your Toulouse already done, then you need this green to go underneath it for
add
the
the green.
Sicily. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you could, I think any of these would be great tops under the Toulouse too. What
That's
if you
true.
had,
Mhm.
you know, you could do the mimosa, even the gardenia.
gardenia.
That would be a nice.
Yeah, none of them are
sleeve.
so voluminous that they would take up too much space under a jacket.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
We talked
okay.
and talked and talked.
Next week, can you talk about how many inches you can make that sleeve extension on the cottage and still look okay? All right, we'll do that. Could you use old scarves for the Eureka patch top? Absolutely.
That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the heart to cut up my scarves, but that's a great idea.
It would be fun to make more pieced Eureka tops for sale. Yeah, we might have to take a look at that. Depends on how busy we are and all of that. But
That's a good idea.
okay, Mary, thanks.
Okay.
All right,
Well-
we'll see you next week for Cottage Week.
All right. Thank you.